Good morning, folks. I want to talk to y'all today about work ethic and timeliness. I've worked a bunch of different jobs. I've managed people in a bunch of different roles. And not every job is for every person. There are jobs out there that you're going to work in your life that you're just not cut out for that. If you're working a job where you're on a crew and you've got 3 or 4 guys that work together and accomplish tasks together and are counting on each other to get things done and help each other out and back each other up. Being the guy that's late for work screws up your crew. You got 2 or 3 other guys standing around waiting on you to get their day started. That's messed up. You need to try really hard to get your butt to work on time to help out your crew. There are situations where you've got a job that one man can't accomplish by himself. So I've had a situation before where I had a young man that worked for me that was a go-getter. I never had to tell him what needed to be done. I never had to tell him what tools to get together. I never had to tell him where to get started. And this young man was habitually late. He couldn't help it. I don't know. He just couldn't get up on time. He was going to be 10, 15 minutes late every day. But when he pulled his truck into the parking lot and his boots touched down on gravel, he went to work. He already had the stuff that he needed to go staged up. He already had the tools and supplies he needed sitting there ready to go. He'd step out of his truck, grab his gear, and be gone. Most of the other folks that worked for that organization would still be in the break room, drinking coffee, slowly getting their stuff together for the day, grabbing tools, getting parts together. And by the time they got all their stuff together and finished their coffee and went and used the bathroom and got in the work truck, our work time was 6 o'clock. These guys got all their stuff ready to go, and it might be 6:30, 6:40. That guy that was late every day, he'd actually show up at work at 6:10, 6:15, but as soon as he got there, he was getting it. So really, he actually started working 15 to 20 minutes before everyone else. When it came to be lunchtime, I'd go looking for him, and he never left whatever job he was working on. He had his little lunch box with his bologna sandwich in it, and he'd just be eating his lunch on the job. He didn't come back to the break room to take lunch. No, he'd just sit down where he was, eat his sandwich about 5 minutes, and he'd go back to work. When he'd get hot, he'd stop and take a breather for 2 or 3 minutes, drink him some water, find a little bit of shade nearby and get him some water, a little bit of shade for just 3 or 4 minutes, and he'd go back to work. He liked to work. He liked to stay busy. In the afternoons, all these other guys were supposed to leave work at 3:30, I think it was. Sometime between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, all these other guys are making their way up to the shop and kind of putting stuff away and hanging out, leaning up on the water cooler, shooting the bull with their work buddies. And when 3:30 hit, or actually when 2:29 hit, they were headed to the trucks. They were ready to go to the house. The one that showed up 15 minutes late, I'd have to go out and find him at 3:30. He'd be out on the job. Like, hey, buddy, it's time to go home. He goes, yeah, 5 more minutes. I'm almost done with this. I don't want to leave till tomorrow. And he'd finish up what he was doing. Then he'd head up to the work shed and he'd do it quick. He'd only spend 5, 6 minutes kind of gathering up what he was going to need for tomorrow, but he'd get all his stuff together right quick, have it sitting there ready for in the morning, and then he'd go home. Supposed to leave at 3:30, he'd leave at 3:45 to 4 o'clock. And he got way more accomplished during the day. because he didn't take. He was supposed to have a 30-minute lunch break, and he just wanted to work. And I'd try and encourage him, man, you got 30 minutes, take your whole lunch break. Man, I got stuff to do. I'm trying to get this knocked out. So at the end of the day, who did I get more work out of? The guy that liked to stay busy, or the guys that like to hang out in the break room and turn that 30-minute lunch break into, 40, 45 minutes? The guys that would take a 10-minute break and it'd turn into 20 or maybe 30-minute lunch, 30-minute breaks, hanging around, drinking water, shooting the bull, drinking Gatorade. So in that situation, this guy was able to work alone. He was a self-starter, and he got a lot accomplished. But yeah, he was 15 minutes late every day. I mean, I can hold to that rule and say, oh, you gotta be here on time. Man, this guy was getting work done. I didn't have to hold his hand or fuss at him, or never was there any question from anyone ever, what's he been doing all day? I can go show you a pile of what he's been doing all day. He's been working his guts out all day. On the other hand, I've seen crews that when everyone's there and working together, they work like a well-oiled machine, and the guy that's actually in the hole doing the work does not have to ask for anything. The guy standing there next to the hole, as soon as he sees that he's putting in this part and this next part's what he's going to need next, they're already standing there waiting for him to reach up, and he doesn't even say anything. He just puts his hand up and they put the part in his hand. He keeps working, never has to stop. I've worked with a couple of crews like that. I'm working with some crews like that right now. These guys just work like a well-oiled machine. But in that situation, you kind of need to have everyone there at the same time, so that these guys, they can't be a well-oiled machine if part of the machine's not there, And so I say all of that to say there's different situations, there's different jobs out there in the world. And if you're not in the place that you're supposed to be, then look for the place you are supposed to be. There doesn't need to be any anger or animosity. There doesn't need to be any frustration that, oh, these guys don't like me, or don't, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just that's not where you're supposed to be. If you're a self-starter, maybe you find that role that you can take care of things by yourself and not have to have a crew with you. If you're a person that works best with a crew, then that's great. Find you a good crew you can work with. But the rules are a little different. If you're going to work with a crew, you got to respect them guys' time. Y'all got to be able to count on each other, which means that y'all got to be able to have an idea that this is when we're getting started, and we're not half of the crew sitting around waiting on you. I've had people that worked for me that were obviously unhappy in the role they were in. And I mean, if that's the case, I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to call you a sorry human being for not fitting into that role. There have been plenty of roles that I've worked that I just wasn't cut out for it. Every job is not for every person. We're all different. Instead of getting mad and getting bogged down in hurt feelings and pointing fingers, start thinking about what is a good fit for me. Where are my strengths? My little brother always says, play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. And part of playing to your strengths is you got to know your weaknesses. Where are the things that you suck at? All right. Now, if you know that you suck at a thing, then you've got two options there. You can learn that thing better and try and educate yourself and get better at it. Or you find yourself in a position that does not require you to deal with that certain thing so much. There's 100,000 different types of jobs out there, and there's, a couple of billion people on this planet. We don't all have to be good at the same things. We don't all have to try and fit into a same job. Find what you're good at and find what you enjoy doing. And I've heard people say the old saying that, If you find what you enjoy to do, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't know if that's 100% true. It's a good thought. I definitely would advocate for doing work that you don't find aggravating. I mean, if you walk in every day and do this thing and just the act of doing it aggravates you to you want to pull your hair out, maybe you find something else to do. But I don't think you have to love a job necessarily to be happy. I think as long as the tasks that you were doing are tasks that you find, you know, not painful. Like, yeah, this isn't bad. I can do this all day. That's good enough. If you can find a place that there's a thing you're doing that doesn't aggravate you, and if the company that you're working for, if the mood makes you feel comfortable, you get along with your coworkers for the most part, the rules of the company for the most part don't make you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, then you probably can be happy in that job. If you can't get along with your coworkers and the rules of the company feel like they're taking advantage of you, well, then go find something else to do. That fear of change screws up a lot of people. I've never had that problem. I'm okay with change. If it's time to do something else, well, all right then, time to do something else. Anyway, just my thoughts for the day. I love you guys. God bless, and thanks for watching.